Some breaking news coming in out of the U.S. An anti-outsourcing bill has been introduced in the U.S. Congress. And what's more important, it's a bipartisan bill. This was reintroduced yesterday. That's Thursday in the U.S. Congress to make companies that move call centers overseas ineligible for grants or guaranteed loans from the U.S. government. This is a move aimed at curbing the transfer of jobs to nations like ours, like India, introduced by Congressmen Gene Green from the Democratic Party and Republican David McKinley. The U.S. Call Center and Consumer Protection Act would deter companies from shipping American jobs overseas and incentivize them to locate in the U.S. by creating a public list of bad actors, consisting of those that shipped all of the most of their services or service work overseas. Let's go across to my colleague Rishabh Gulati for more on this. Rishabh, Trump promised this during the campaign. He mentioned this in the speech the other day, and this is a bipartisan bill which has been introduced now. What does it mean for India? First off, we'll talk about other considerations later.
Which has already been doing the rounds even before Trump took the oath of office in January this year, has now been reintroduced in the Congress in the United States. And as you mentioned, this is a bipartisan bill, which means the two men who are supporting this bill are from either side of the aisle. Now, fundamentally, the bill is calling for two or three things. Number one, it wants the U.S. companies to have to justify to the U.S. State Department, the U.S. government, why it is that they can't hire local American citizens that they require others from abroad as migrants to come in on certain visas, including H-1B and others. Number two, it wants a drastic reduction in the amount of immigrants who are coming in working on visas. Number three, it is proposing a hefty tax on U.S. firms that choose to actually send jobs abroad for every job lost in the United States that a company has and is actually outsourcing into places like Bengaluru, so the U.S. companies face a tax. We've already seen the impact, Athar, here in India, where IT stock firms have been mired in the stock exchanges because of all this talk about outsourcing. They rely on the U.S., which remains the number one outsourcing market till now, and if a crackdown comes in the wake of a hefty tax or indeed a travel ban, either of which is going to have a direct impact on bottom lines here.
It's not really surprising this has bipartisan support, Rishabh, because some Democratic congressmen as well as senators have also been talking about getting the jobs back to America, maybe not in the harshest tone like Trump uses, but this has been a concern for the U.S. for a very long time.
Look, the reality of this entire game is, Athar, and you know it as much as anyone else who's watching this broadcast, the Indian IT boom has been on the back of what is known as arbitrage. There's the cost arbitrage. That is just cheaper to do the job here in India, the back-end job, because the salaries here are lower as in dollar terms as compared to what happens there. There is no production in terms of our own R&D which we're doing over here. So as long as the Indian IT sector keeps working on this cost arbitrage, it is very vulnerable to legal changes in the United States, because if companies can't find it cheaper to come to India anymore, they won't be coming to India or Indonesia and other parts of Southeast Asia. So the IT sector needs to treat this as a wake-up call, shift towards R&D. Once you start producing your own intelligence, your own content, your own software, your own hardware, then these kind of policies, the legal policies from the United States, won't affect you anymore.
All right, Rishabh, thank you for those details. An anti-outsourcing bill introduced in the U.S. Congress, or reintroduced in the U.S. Congress, has bipartisan support as well. We'll talk a bit more about that later today.